Hello and welcome to another model building workshop. I'm Mr. Allen coming to you from Providence, Rhode Island, here inside my basement workshop. And I'm doing this on behalf of the Community Libraries of Providence. So today we're going to look at DML, known as Dragon models now, the BTR-70 armored car, Soviet era. And this kit came out in 1990. So that's when this one came out. So it's kind of an older Dragon kit and a fun one. It's got some pros and cons, which we'll talk about. And anyway, there's the box with a cool box art showing the East Germans, the DDR, over at the, I think it's the Brandenburg Gate there, back when the Berlin Wall was there. And in fact, this kit came out in 1990, around the time when that wall was about to come down. Something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, to be honest. I thought that wall was up for good. I'm glad it didn't stay. So here's the kit. Been tinkering with this all day. I may have overweathered this, but hey, I wanted to try out a few different things. So this is a Soviet 8-wheeled armored car, BTR-70. So this one was released in the 1970s to the Soviet military and to some of the Warsaw Pact troops. East Germany used it more than the other Warsaw Pact members, and in fact I think it went to primarily to East Germany and Romania. I'm not so sure if the other Warsaw Pact nations got a hold of these. This thing followed up the BTR-60 series, which had been in widespread use, obviously from the 60s onward, and they're still around today. And this was followed up by the BTR-80. So keeping with the numerical sequence, in the 80, that kit I have in my stash, and at some point I plan on getting that one too, especially now that I've done this one and I've kind of seen things that can be improved upon during construction. So here's the instruction booklet, and I'll give you a brief history based on what it says here. I do have a book which I'll show you, but I'll just sum up the history by reading what they wrote here. Yeah, it's an 8x8 amphibious armored personnel carrier. According to this, it said it made its first public appearance in 1980 during a parade in Moscow. Although it's similar to the BTR-60PB, which it replaced, the BTR-70 had a number of significant improvements. So it had two ZMZ 4905 gasoline engines, which is more powerful than the diesel engine of the BTR-60 series. Two exit hatches between the second and third wheels on either side, which you can see right there. So it's easy access and exit for the troops. There are 3 gun ports on each side. I don't know if you can see them on there. These little ports that slide open so you can stick the rifles out and fire. So they can fire from inside the vehicle. And the turret, which is basically the same turret that was on the BTR-60PB, has a 14.5 millimeter and a 7.62 millimeter machine guns in there. And it's fitted with the nuclear biological chemical system and some night vision equipment. And it has a single water jet in the rear, which would make it go across rivers, making it amphibious and popular with the Soviet naval infantry at the time. So that's the very quick history they've got here. But it was to the point, so I kind of liked it. Typical Dragon kit of the old days. It's got the paint callouts here. It's got some instruction, different things here, which I think we're all used to that. And the instructions are a series of, typical blow up pictures here. So it has different side ports here, which East Germany had a particular one, and then early Russian Soviet version here. The hatches on the hull top, you can make them open if you want to, though there's no interior detail, but it's there if you want to have troops coming out of it. So there's room for improvement and some scratch building if you wanted to really dress this up. You can see the turret instructions are pretty basic. There's not a whole lot. What I found to be challenging on this kit is all of these handrails and tiny pieces. I found that to be a bit of a headache, and much to my shame, as I was trying to do detailing and painting, I kept breaking these things and had to replace them. Some of them I had to do several times because my clumsy fingers kept snapping the things off. So that's a drawback with this kit. I mean, I guess some more experienced modelers may not have that issue, but I seem to be in clumsy mode lately. So yeah, so the suspension's got some tricky things to it to mount all these different things there, but nothing unbearable. The wheels do turn when you're done, and they're steerable. So again, the challenge is all of these small brackets, handles, and so forth that are on this kit. That would be the main headache. It comes with two marking options here for the USSR and of course the East German one. And the East German one has more than one marking option depending on which numbers you wanted to use. I chose the higher numbers. I'm not really sure why. I just did. So, you know, there you have it. The Soviet one is just a plain green with numbers on it. And you've got the gray-green East German vehicle, which is what I've done here. Let me take a look at this here. It's old Concord Publications books. These were really great. I think you can still find some of these out there. And this shows a BTR-70 on the front and finish markings, which is really cool looking. Wouldn't that be a fun diorama to do with all of this ski gear and stuff on that? Anyway, there's not a whole lot in this book, and there's again by Steve Zaloga, who seemed to be very prolific. Still cranking out some really interesting books. Boy, he's written a lot. But there's not too much here on the BTR-70, believe it or not. And I'm going to try to get to it. Most of it's on the BTR-60. And if you're building one of those, boy, it's got a lot of really cool photos in here. And of course, it's got the advertising in the back promoting different Dragon models from the 1990 time period, as Dragon was making a lot of these modern Soviet things. So here's some photos here of the BTR-70, and it's got the 80 as well on the other page. I do intend, as I mentioned, I think to get to the BTR-80 at some point. Yeah, there's some more shots here of the 70. So my plan with this plunk, is going to work with this ICM, you know, the GDR Army motorized rifle guys here, and it's a nice set of 4 figures from the East German Army or Border Guards. You could do, you know, there's a lot of options with this. That's in the combat uniforms. You can see that on the back here. The assembly is pretty standard. This is an old ICM kit, and it's got the kind of rain pattern camouflage, which I got to figure out how I'm going to duplicate that, because that looks like it could be very nightmarish to paint. East German uniforms are really interesting, and as you can see, I have parts of that stuff kicking around. So, yeah, because they do have, you know, a number of these things at Army Navy stores and whatnot. It's pretty easy to get a hold of some of this stuff. I don't know about right now, but well, after the wall came down, this stuff was everywhere and available. So, as I mentioned, these wheels, you could, you know, get the front to turn, and they're steerable. Let me get up a little closer so you can see this guy. You can see the rifle ports on the side there. Since I broke one of these tiny little hooks here, I just added a helmet there, which I think looks kind of cool anyway. Kind of a nice accident. So you can see the amphibious shape of this. Again, these handles were a little tricky. It doesn't mention this on the instruction sheet, but this is a radio antenna, and I think you could add some height to that. Here's the rear that's got the water jet. And it's got these parts here, which are not on the Soviet version. Just a heads up on that if you're building one. I have to grab this very carefully because there's some very small, easily breakable parts. But it's very busy with all kinds of stuff on the engine covers and so forth here. A lot of fun little details to try to pick out. There's those hatches on top that you can open if you want. And the driver's hatches also, you can have those open. I've got the these things covering the windows, but you could have those up and have the windows visible. I've got it kind of buttoned up for combat. But there are different ways you could work this depending on what kind of scene or what kind of mood you're in. So that's the BTR-70. And maybe someday I'll work on the 80 and you can see that. We'll see, because Santa dropped off a lot of interesting things, and we'll see which direction I end up going in 2024. So anyway, that's what we got for you this week. And we'll see you soon on the Model Building Workshop. Okay, take it easy. Keep on building.